So here we are in Visual Studio Code, and we're going to start our first .NET Core console application. Now, when we're doing this in Visual Studio Code, sometimes it's not as straightforward as maybe the Visual Studio product if you're watching the Visual Studio videos for 2019 as well, because Visual Studio Code really wants you to learn how to use the command line or terminal operations. So once you open your Visual Studio Code, you might see a welcome screen or a recent project screen. There are usually tabs at the top you can close if you don't want to see those windows. Visual Studio Code also updates fairly regularly, so if there has been an update, then you'll usually see kind of a what's changed document. You're welcome to close any of those as we get started. So the first thing we're going to do is open a folder. Visual Studio Code kind of works in folders or code spaces to help keep your projects organized. So if you don't have the Explorer window open, you can click this little file icon over here on the left. And we're going to open a folder. And I have a folder already picked out for the code samples that I'm going to be writing while we're working together. Now this screen that you see here, this is a really common prompt that we get. And really it's about trust. So you can see that, some of the features of VS Code is that it may automatically execute any files that you open inside of a folder. So if you download code from the internet and you open it in Visual Studio Code, if you don't trust where that came from and you maybe suspect that there could be something malicious in there, then don't trust the authors, and it will open the folder in a restricted mode to make sure if there are any scripts or anything in there that would automatically run, that it will restrict them from doing so. So it's just a safety feature. If it's your own folder, then you can trust the author of the file, or you can click this if you do trust the author of the file and you don't want to get this prompt every time. So you can say, yes, I trust. And so now we can see that I have this folder open over here on the side. Okay, so once I have kind of the main folder, which I've named VS Code .NET Core Samples, because we're going to be creating kind of a Hello World project, I'm going to create a new folder specifically for this Hello World project. So I'm going to click this new folder icon right here, and I'm going to name it Hello World, just like that. And then we're going to open the terminal window so we can initialize our project. Now again, Visual Studio Code really wants you to get into that terminal. There's not a lot of like windows and wizards and things to walk you through the steps. So in order to run the terminal window, we can do this a couple of different ways. You can come up here to Terminal, click New Terminal. You can, and so you'll see this opens a window down here we can type in. There's also the hotkey of Control-Shift+. You can also come over here to your folder, right-click, and open an integrated terminal. What I want you to pay attention to is what this current location looks like. Does it say your main folder, or does it say the Hello World folder? And so the difference is where that code that we're going to write, that statement, is going to be executed. So in my previous terminal window, it just opened it for my main folder. And so if I execute any statements, it's going to execute them on that main folder. Whereas if I have the Hello World folder, then that's where it's going to put my files. So you have to really pay attention to the file structure that the terminal is giving you. If you're not used to kind of doing things command line, this is a great way to practice just what that feels like in executing and typing in commands. So to get started and initialize our .NET Core C# console application, we type .NET new console. So we can see .NET there is highlighted in yellow, so that way we know it's a kind of a system keyword. And then new console, and just hit enter, and it will go ahead and create that for you. And then we should see over here in the editor that we have some files that are now available for us to look at. And so we can click on that program.cs file here to see the code that's given to us as our template inside of our Hello World application. Now, you might see this prompt that's coming up down here at the bottom that says required assets to build and debug are missing. Do you want to add them? Yes, the answer is yes. The answer is almost always yes. So Visual Studio, the main product, comes with all of these features kind of already baked in, like all of these libraries and files and things that you need to reference, kind of all baked in for you already. But VS Code, in order to be a little more lightweight, doesn't bake all that in for you just by default. So anytime it's prompting you to add in some resources that you might need for your project, the system has basically identified that you're missing something that is going to be key to the type of project that you're working in. And then by saying yes, it's going to go ahead and pull those things in. And you may have noticed that now there's some additional files over here in our File Explorer that's added in for our project. So we're going to continue to work on our console applications, get into how we run and debug these different types of applications. But again, if you're not familiar with Visual Studio Code, how to use the terminal windows, things like that, feel free to practice, make new console applications, create new folders, and really just get familiar with the IDE so that you'll be able to follow along with the projects that we're doing.